Okay, the next piece of origami we're going to learn is a swan. I like this piece. Well, I like all of them. I picked out my favorites for this series of lessons. These are all my favorites. The swan is a really simple piece to do. In my mind, it looks really cool for how simple it is to do. So it's a good starting piece after the cup. And I like the swan. Well, I already said why I like it. It looks neat for how simple it is. It's fun to make. I enjoy it. Anyway, so let me show you how to make the swan. Uh, one of the things that we do, one of the parts of the swan is called the kite base. Every once in a while, as I introduce pieces, I'm going to introduce a base to you. A base is a series of folds in origami that is used among lots of different pieces of origami. So the kite base that starts out the swan will also be used in a number of different ones that you'll find if you progress further in origami. Anyways, the swan starts with the kite base, and let me show you how to do that. Here, a little swan, and we're going to make a green swan to be friends with my yellow swan. So most of the time, if you're using most of the time, if you're using colored origami paper, you will start with the colored side down, like that. So I turn the colored side down. If you're using, regular printer paper, it doesn't matter which side goes down. That may not need to be said, but just so you know. Anyway, so colored side down. I'm going to start by folding it in half in a triangular direction. Make sure, the other nice thing about colored paper is when you're trying to match up those corners up there, it makes it easier to tell if they're matching up by when the white color gets hidden. So I'm trying to get these two tips right up here as close as possible together to make it a nice clean fold. When it looks like all the white is hidden, I'm going to do this side first, hold that, and then do this side second. There's my triangle. I usually have to go over it with my fingernail, give it a nice good crease. Open it back up. Now we're going to take this side here and fold it into the middle along this crease that we just made. Right up in there, and you have to make sure that when you're folding it, it lines up all the way down at the bottom. I kind of like to make sure that I'm getting a nice good point here at the bottom. And once there's a point, I hold that down with my thumb and pull up with this and lay it against that crease there. And starting at the bottom, I flatten it towards the top. And that should give you a pretty good crease there. Now, same thing on the other side. Get that right up in there. The second side is a little bit easier because it pushes up against it. As you can see, that looks like a kite, hence the name, a kite base. So there's our kite base. Now moving on to making our swan. Flip it over. And now, you see how I have that there? We're going to take this side and fold that in towards the center crease. So take this here. And it's the same thing. This is getting this tip on the second fold here. You'll find it's going to be a little bit difficult to get a nice, clean, sharp, pointy edge there. So do the best you can. Kind of follow. Maybe I'll turn it this way. You can see what I'm doing. I'm trying to get a nice, good point there that's going to fold in towards the middle. Okay, got a good point there. I'm holding it with this finger. And now I'm going to match that up towards the center. So you can see that there. Using my fingernail to go over it, again giving it a nice, good, clean fold. Now let's do the other side. You can flip it over this way or do it that way. whatever is easiest for you. This piece goes in a little bit easier. I couldn't say exactly why, it just does. Okay, there's the second piece there. Now the next step is to take this pointy part and bring it just about almost all the way to the top there. I don't like to go, definitely don't go past it. I like to go just under it, or it could go right up to it. But I feel like the swan balances better if it goes just close to it. Now I'm going to take this piece, that's going to be his head, and I'm folding it down. Now as you're doing this, you don't want this to be kind of off the center. You got to make sure this center line that we have here matches up with the center line there. Everything's got to be perfectly centered there, even the head. Okay, now that we have all that folded in place, now I'm going to fold it in half this direction. Our swan is starting to take shape. You don't need to crease that too much yet, because now that I have that there, I'm going to lift up his head. Not quite as, we don't want to go straight up and down. Swans' necks don't really look like that. They're angled slightly back. And now I'm going to lift out its beak. And there is our swan. A little buddy for my yellow swan.